Right, I'm pretty excited to start this podcast. And I guess to begin, I really want to explain why I'm even doing this in the first place. And it really comes down to I just honestly love the idea of leadership. I love the topic. I love trying to be a better leader. I love learning from fantastic leaders. And I just really want to dive deep into the topic and talk about how to be more effective, how leadership connects to happy organizations, how it connects to positive culture, and just the overall benefits that leadership can do for any organization, for any individual, for teams, departments, whatever it may be. Um, an effective leader is extremely important in my eyes. Now, with that, I guess I gotta touch on my credibility to even talk on this subject. So, I guess this really does start at the age of 18. When I was 18 years old, I went on a service based mission that was for religious reasons. And I left, I think, a month and a half after graduation of high school and kind of got thrown into a lot of leadership roles. And I was on this mission for 2 years. And I really kind of, like I said, was thrown into hard discussions with people that I was trying to lead. I guess I should say, so I was in charge of teams of about 24 to 28, and also being small is about 10 people. And this was learning how to inspire other people, learning how to operate and run an organization, learning how to motivate people who sometimes are unmotivated, how to deal with people who don't want to work, how to correct people, how to teach them what it means to be important, how to be appreciated, teaching a organization how to have a unanimous goal, how to work together, all the things that leadership entails. I also was blessed to work very closely with the president of this mission and to observe a lot what he did, observe what other leaders did on the mission, and then from that kind of 2 years, I have a lot of stories that I'll dive deep into and use as examples later on. But then I came back, I went through college, and I was fortunate enough to work through college in two software tech companies that specialize in employee engagement. And so the product they sell is make employees happier. So they use that through appreciation, they do that through incentives of money and building culture, building managers. Both these companies, I was about the 20th-ish employee hired. The second one, I was there for 2 years, and I got to work really closely with the executive team. My direct boss was the CFO, and he was a fantastic leader. And I have a lot of examples and stories that I will use of what I've learned through him. Also, the CEO, who was a very successful entrepreneur and ran several businesses and had several fantastic exits. I was able to become, I guess I can call it family friends at this point, and learn from him and ask him a lot of questions and do some interviews with him. I also took some of the executives out to lunch, which was fantastic. I kind of picked over and asked them questions, and I observed them a lot. I don't know if they know that, but I kind of watched all that they did and how they did it. And then with that, just I listen to a lot of podcasts and books and all the topics of entrepreneurship, leadership, and growing a business. And currently, I'm a partner in a commercial real estate business. We work in syndication, and also I'm a partner in a sleep apnea treatment company, and that's with my family. So I am able to take what I've learned, and also every day in my current job, I am trying to implement the skills that I think are important, and I kind of wanted to share them as I go, as I'm learning and improving. And hopefully, anyone out there could learn from this, or take, even if it's 1% of an idea that I share, and make it their own, make it better, to hopefully help out whatever they're doing and people they work with, who they work for. That would be the goal, honestly, is to just kind of share the love, so to speak. And also, I want to do kind of some prefacing with this. So, number one, I think a lot of podcasts, leadership, books, YouTube videos, interviews get vague, and people talk about leadership, inspire people, motivate them, and make people be better and all this stuff, but they don't really get into the how-to details. And so I'm going to try and touch on theory and kind of the overall ideas in the episodes, but also really try and dive very much in the details and say, here's step 1, 2, 3, how to actually participate in this leadership idea and what things you can do, what things I've done personally, things that leaders have done to me as far as I was being led by them. And hopefully it's not just kind of the theory, but also like there's the actual, the details. And so to start, I kind of want to start with the theory of leadership and why it's important. And for me, leadership is to take one person within a group or organization, company, whatever it may be, and specifically be able to help this one person grow based on their needs. And then if you can do that among all of the individuals, or one by one, collectively as the group, then everyone can benefit. And this can be inspiring to become a better person. So this is take where they are now and make them better, make them accomplish their goals, help them understand their worth, to teach them that they're appreciated, to teach them that some of them have glass ceilings, that they can break those and really kind of just push their limits. And I really think that it does go one by one, and then through each individual, you will be able to touch the entire group or team, and eventually the goal that was set by the team can be met where everyone's elevated at the same time. And that's kind of what I see as an effective leader. Like that's what they do. They elevate every individual person that they're over or working with. Now, like I mentioned before, I want to dive deep into, okay, how do we actually do this? And again, I have several ideas and a lot of episodes, and I'm going to touch on different versions of how to and whatnot and how they'll connect. But for this first episode, I want to dive deep into this idea of how to go one by one with the implementation of the strategy of having one-on-ones. So back on my mission, this is when I first started doing these myself, and for probably about a year, I did about 6 one-on-ones every week. So I was with one individual 6 out of 7 days of the week, where I was, with one person, we were working together, and I was able to basically hold a one-on-one with this individual throughout the 3 or 4 hours that I was with them. And so just that alone, I don't know, that's several hundreds of one-on-ones. And then in the last company I was at, the employee engagement company, I had a one-on-one once a week for 2 years, and that's another 104 one-on-ones that I did, and it was I learned a lot by having someone more experienced than me being the leader in that one-on-one, and also I personally cherish a lot of those hours that I spent with my boss and what he taught me and what I've learned from there. So I'm gonna try and take that knowledge that I've gained over the hundreds of hours of one-on-ones that I've had and share kind of the basics of, okay, here's how to do this. So this is going to be between one leader and one individual. And the purpose of this is not to explain how to have an effective one-on-one as far as like the agenda that you take and like that effectiveness. There's plenty of videos and things on that. I'm going to go deeper on how to have an effective one-on-one to uplift the individual. And by default, that will create a better, like, effective workplace environment to get the actual job done in the day-to-day. So first things first, the most important thing that matters in a one-on-one is that the leader is genuine. So you have to first go inward, look at yourself. Do I genuinely care about the person that I'm having this meeting with? Do I care for their success? Do I want them to get better? Do I care enough to actively listen to them as they talk to me? Because if you can't figure that out, the person on the other side of the table is going to understand that, and you won't get the results that you want. And eventually there won't be enough respect to really push someone to become their best self. So again, number one, you have to be genuine. Number two is, I believe the more frequent, the better. So I think at least once a month is mandatory. If not, better yet, do once a week. And this is, I would say, at least 45 minutes, best case is 1 hour. And this is so there is dedicated time to the individual, to the relationship, to build things like trust that I'll get into, and actually be effective. So now, moving on, I'm going to take 2 pathways for this one-on-one. The first pathway is I have to understand and get to know the actual individual that I'm talking to. The other pathway is going to be the employee that I'm working with, right? So there's 2 different functions, right? It's like the individual, the human, the employee, or skill sets in whatever job they're doing. So I believe there's kind of 3 phases to each of these pathways, and I'm going to explain them right now. So starting with the individual. First things first, you have to get to know them. So I would say every single time that you have a one-on-one conversation, you should spend 5 to 10 minutes basically just asking questions. And the questions will vary based on kind of the stage you're in. So with the first stage, it's very general, as if getting to know a friend or an acquaintance, someone you meet. Most people probably do this already because it's like standard and it's part of human nature to get to know someone a little bit. So this is like, what's your family look like? Are you married? What's your wife, like, or do you have kids? Where do your parents live? What do you do on the weekends? What are your hobbies? Ask them, what things do you like get excited about, right? Like, do you love movies or video games or sports, football, basketball, whatever it is. So this is phase 1 is most people should know how to do this. And I should say, sorry, some people actually don't know how to do this. Some people are bad at making this first step of connecting with the individual, which makes everything more difficult moving forward. Because I believe it is much better to break the ice and put things out in the open so there's no misunderstanding and not expecting what's going to happen or understanding what the expectations are. So I say, put it out in the open, ask the question, break down the walls, be direct to a degree. Okay, so now you've kind of got past this first stage. And this is not like you do this in the first one-on-one. This is, take 3 or 4 or 5 times to ask a lot of these questions. And then you kind of get to phase two. And also, some people are like, how do I think of all these questions? If you genuinely listen to the individual as you ask the phase one get to know you questions, you will understand where they light up just a little bit more based on their answers, which means I can ask deeper questions regarding those topics in phase two. So someone says, oh yeah, I love to watch movies. Okay, so describe to me your favorite movie and why is it your favorite movie? Talk about, okay, how's it like being a dad or a mother? What are your struggles? What are your challenges? What's your favorite thing about your child, Lily, or whatever it is? And let them basically elaborate on the phase one questions, which most people ask and say, cool, great, and they don't go further, which means the relationship, the foundation is shallow, which means because the foundation is shallow, the ability to build it up high is very, very small, right? It's not going to function. You can't build the Eiffel Tower based on one brick. You need a strong foundation. So phase two is getting a little bit deeper with the individual. Like I said, just having to elaborate a little bit more on the basic questions. And then I would touch a little bit further, right, after you kind of ask these questions, is ask and kind of touch into the goal area of their lives. So what are your goals as a dad or a wife or a spouse or a grandson or whatever it is as far as family goes? Ask them about, well, yeah, what would you love to do if you had 20 hours a week to do whatever you wanted to do? What does that look like? What are your desires? And let them elaborate. And here's a hint. And this is not my idea. This came from a book that I've read about leadership. And the question that you should be asking is, and what else? So it touches back to this elaborate theory I'm talking about. If someone brings up a goal and they're talking about it, one, if it's a goal they have, then it must be personal enough that they care about it and they're passionate about it enough to have some sort of explanation. So if someone was to say, I have a goal to be able to go fishing, once a week and just enjoy that peaceful time. Okay, say, well, and what else about that goal? Tell me more. And they're going to be elaborated. Well, I want to, spend time with my kids, or I need the mental break, or whatever it is. And obviously, this is a lot deeper question from when you started of what's your hobby? And they say fishing. Right now, we're at the goal. This is why it's kind of phase two. And now let's head on to phase three, which again correlates directly to the more that they touch on things in phase two, and as you actively listen to them, you'll know where to go, and you can kind of be guided by the answers they give as far as phase three. Phase three is this: you obviously have to have a decent relationship to ask these questions and get real answers. But if you're genuine and the person understands you're genuine, they're going to be a lot more open to telling you more about their personal lives. This is when I get to the questions of, okay, what is your personal why? Like, why do you get up in the morning? What makes you motivated? Why are you here? Why do you do what you do every day? Why do you suffer through the hard things of life? And I've asked this question to dozens of people, and honestly, it's my favorite question to ask because I've never had anyone respond to that question, and it hasn't led to a plentiful amount of trust that gets built, to respect that gets built, to understanding this person extremely better and deeper as they kind of share their true feelings. And sometimes people get a little bit kind of taken back by the question. At first, because I don't think it's asked that often in society, even by people who are close, even best friends. I don't think really ask each other, what is your why? So it may take a second, and they may not have an answer the very first time. They'll give you some sort of answer because everyone should be able to spit out something. But what I've realized is either before you ask that question, tell them, hey, next week, I'm going to ask you the question, what is your why? So please think about it, ponder it, and then elaborate it on next meeting. Or if that doesn't work or you forget to do that, ask the question, what's your why? Let them give, their first initial kind of gut reaction, and then say, we're going to come back to this next week and discuss it further. Because one, everyone always, after the question, thinks about it deeper after the meeting's over and things come to their mind. And so let them share because, again, people are going to want to share because it's genuine and they want to tell you these things because they feel listened to, they feel appreciated, they feel heard, and they're going to enjoy the idea of, I can talk about myself in an awesome environment. So to me, that's kind of the pinnacle of the why. And that doesn't stop there because as you get deeper into the why, there'll be, again, things you can touch on. And I don't think it has to go extremely, extremely deep because it is still a, basically a work environment. It does work for, personal relationships as well. But if you can get to the why and feel like you got an honest answer, then you are leaps and bounds ahead of other leaders and the ability to build a very solid relationship. And this comes from data. So in those companies I worked for in the software, I was seeing the data that employees would take surveys that would formulate kind of how happy they are and with their jobs, their careers, all that. And it's quite crazy how poor the scores come back as far as what is your relationship with your manager like. In fact, the stats are, I believe, most people quit or leave their jobs because of their manager, not because of the job itself. So there's a lot of room for improvement in the world of corporate America to build better leaders and have employees have better relationships with those leaders. Okay, so here's the individual section. Now we're going to move on to the employee section. So it's kind of very similar, but it just shifts more to kind of like the career focus part of the individual. So phase one is very similar. It's honestly like the questions you would ask in an interview as you're looking to hire this individual in the first place. So you ask about strengths, weaknesses, their background, kind of their skill sets, and what they can do and provide as far as an employee goes. So usually you can just take the basic interview questions and ask a few more and then elaborate a little bit deeper into those basic questions. And this is pretty easy because most people have these conversations and kind of want to, tell their boss, what they're good at, obviously. And then as you are moving to phase two, this gets a little bit deeper. So my number one thing that I start kind of this phase with, it gets a little bit deeper, that kind of lets them know that you are curious about who they are and how they function. So I like to ask, okay, as far as motivation goes, are you task oriented or are you deadline driven? So there's a whole book on this. It's called What Motivates Getting Things Done. And this is, all right, do you need a big to-do list and you get stressed by having things unchecked that motivates you to put in the work to check those items and get them off the list? Or are you someone who says, I don't really care about a to-do list, but when the deadline is tomorrow or 6 hours away, then I get stressed, which motivates me to accomplish the task that I have to do before the deadline comes due. And so I believe this helps me understand, okay, can I help you by giving you more tasks? Can I help you by giving more deadlines? And you can kind of lead them better by understanding, what is the environment they need. Along with this, there's questions like, okay, how do you brainstorm? Are you someone who needs a whiteboard and open space? Do you need to be in a room with a bunch of people? Do you like it better to like, hey, here's an idea, let me throw it on the wall, see what sticks. I don't really care if anyone is for or against it. Or people are the opposite and say, I like to, think privately beforehand and kind of do my own brainstorm session internally and then present, here's my, best two ideas that I have. And, they need kind of space to prepare. This obviously helps like with meetings if you're with a team and trying to brainstorm as a leader and get the team to collaborate on the project or whatever it is. Then you understand, okay, I need to give some time before the meeting to let, Jim and Jane do their own personal thing, whereas Zach or whoever can just come in and start spit firing and we can all work together. So it's just things to honestly help you know how to better lead the group and know what each employee needs to better function in the environment. And there's other questions you'll also get to know about, like, do they work better in a group? Are they better individually? Do they need quiet time? Do they love, music, headphones? Let me work for 4 hours. Are they more kind of chatty and like to, think things out loud? Just kind of understand like personality traits within the working environment. And this I would say is phase two. Now moving on to phase three. And obviously, again, like I mentioned, you have to build from phase one to phase two to phase three. And every time you move on to the next phase, there'll be hints of things that the person told you that you can then work on and elaborate on, and you'll know what questions to dive deeper into, because as you're trying to focus and understand who they are, how they function, what their needs are, basically, if you are astute, you'll know what to do. But phase three is, again, deeper. So this is more goal phase. So again, if you put things out in the open, it's a lot easier to build trust in the relationship because there's no like assuming what's going on, or they're too awkward or too afraid to ask you questions about things that they've been pondering on their mind that they want to kind of touch and go a little bit deeper because there's things that are personal to them that they're passionate about, but they don't feel like they can talk to someone about it or talk to the leader. So it's just like, okay, ask them, what is your financial goal, right? What salary do you want to be at? And so sometimes, right, there's the question about the raises and money and all of that stuff. If you ask them, okay, what's your goal? What's the expectation? You as a leader understand where they're at. They know that you care about where they're at, and you can help them hopefully get to the goal or do your part. Also, I'd ask, what is your desired job title? Where do you want to be, right? Do you want to become executive? Do you want to even be a manager? Some people are just content with doing their job 9 to 5 and going home and not dealing with the extra roles of management or entrepreneurship, stuff like that. So again, you can understand what their end goal is, where they're at, and where they want to be. And here's also one that I think is very important, and this does kind of touch a little bit into the individual pathway as well. But from my experience, a lot of leadership has to do with how and when you can correct someone. And I will have an entire episode on this topic alone of correcting those you work with. But I think it is essential to understand how to correct someone so that they can improve, and also you can tell them where their shortcomings are and where they need to get better. And most people are terrible at doing this correctly. So what I've tried to implement back on this idea of get it out in the open is asking them, how do you prefer correction? And most people don't ever get asked this question, so it could be kind of jarring and may not know exactly how to answer out at first. But as you kind of talk through it and as they understand what you're looking for, then it'll make sense. So this is like, okay, like I want to be able to show you where I think you can improve and kind of some of your weaknesses are, but I want to do it in a way to where you feel like this is a problem and I want to fix it because it's going to benefit me and I get to become a better person. I get to grow myself. So that way you as a leader can say, look, you're not doing so hot on your customer success phone calls when the client gets angry. And you want to say, how can I tell you that you need correction? Because some people are right, like multiple may actually say, just give it to me straight, just be super direct with me, even though they don't actually like that. And at this point, you should be able to know kind of their personality enough to understand how much they actually are truthful in the I want the direct response. Because usually how direct they are to other people reflects on how well they receive direct insights. So ask them, talk about, okay, right, do you need it to be a little bit more sugar coated? Do you want me to present it in a different way? Should I tell you immediately when I see something that's wrong and say, hey, that was wrong, here's why? Do you want me to save it for these meetings and talk about it here? And just kind of brainstorm together in the meeting of, okay, how do you need to receive it and how do I need to give it? And here's where, and I think that this idea of correction is so important. And now I'm going to kind of tie this in to both the individual pathway and the employee pathway. And again, I'm trying to be very detailed in how to and give you questions to ask and things to do. And I want to continue to elaborate on these even further, but also not talk for so many hours. But I kind of want to make this goal big picture, kind of the overarching view of how doing this type of get to know the individual, get to know the employee affects the goal of the leader to build someone up and to create positive culture, a positive environment, and help the entire team as a whole benefit, grow, and prosper. So imagine this scenario. I am a leader. I spent the hours, the time, the energy, the focus to get to know the individual and the employee. So I know kind of their struggles. I know what they like, what they don't like. I know their quirks. I know their personality. I know their strengths, their weaknesses. I know what motivates them. I know how they like to be corrected. I know basically a lot about this person. And as you build this foundation of trust and respect, there's a lot of things that you can leverage this with. Like I said, create a better person that you can behold this person and say, I can help you reach your goals. So now let's flip. In the same scenario, I'm now the employee. I have a leader who spent the time, who listens to me every week, who cares about my goals, who knows what they are. They have shown interest in my passions about my movies and also my desire to get paid X amount of dollars every month and my desire to receive this job title eventually. So they're in my corner. Now, here's where it all gets really exciting. Because this relationship is so strong and positive, you now have the ability to hold this person to a high standard. And what's amazing is a standard that you have both set. So you as the leader can say, look, you have a goal to reach this amount of pay. You have a goal to benefit your family in this way. You have a goal to reach this hobby in this way, and this job title. I'm here to help every which way that I can to build you up to reach your goals. So it is now me and you versus your goals. And again, be blunt and talk about this like I am now. And you can say, in order to be able to help you reach these goals, there has to be improvement and there has to be standards that are set and expectations that need to be met in order for you to grow. And so I'm going to do my best to push you to achieve these things. That also means when there is a problem or a weakness or something that needs to be corrected, I'm going to call you out on it in hopes that you can understand it, put effort into fixing it to, again, reach the goal. So then this conversation, right? Imagine having this conversation day one, a new job, and someone says this. It wouldn't come across as genuine and because there's not the foundation that you've spent time to build. So picture this, you can hold someone to a high standard. The employee accepts the standards because they get to grow. You get to help them grow. And eventually, if you had 5 people that you're doing this with in a team, you have 5 people eagerly every day showing up, motivated to reach a goal because they have this awesome environment to grow, to become better, to reach the financial goals that they have, to reach their family goals that they have. imagine the environment you could create and the positivity and the effort that would go in each week to accomplishing whatever the company goal is or the department goal or whatever the team's goal is. And this also comes from, I once was talking to the VP of sales and I was asking him what his one-on-one conversations were like with the CEO. And this is the CEO who's been a CEO for probably 2 or 3 decades at this point. I don't know, a long time. He was the entrepreneur in charge of the company. And he said, he walks in and he just has the highest expectations, and I just want to do everything that I can to reach the goals that we've set together. And once I heard that, that kind of blew my mind and it helped me rethink the whole idea of kind of the reason behind the one-on-one and the power of building the relationship and what it means and how that correlates to job performance and growth of an individual. So I'm trying to share this, that leaders are important. They can actually create change within an organization. If someone wants to make their department better or their team better, there are actual levers that you can pull, but it's not overnight. It takes hard work. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of brain power and some exhaustion to actively listen, to focus, to plan, to come across compassionate, but also stern. And I think that if leaders would take this approach to understand who is the individual I'm working with, who is the employee I'm working with, do I actually care about their lives and their career? And if more people did this, the results of each company would be very different, and the environment of each company would be very different. I think there'd be less turnover, and I think there would be a lot more revenue and profits for everyone to share. So that's what I wanted to share in this first episode, is the power of one-on-ones in creating company culture. And I'm excited to keep going and share more episodes and discuss further more ideas on how you can be an effective leader and create positive company culture.